TurboTrading with head trader Robert Knight, MBA.
This is a talk on AERC and what Tyler aptly describes as the shenanigan trades. Shenanigans going on. So this was yesterday. AERC did have some, got some activity going from 14.25 to 17.25. 5-wave move up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-wave move up. And then you can see that it had this big long wick up, next candle's red. You need to get out of that trade. Sure enough, it sold off. But then it based in here, and we can see in here that the moving averages all sort of flattened out, and then the 15 went through the 50, and it started in this big rising channel. So this was a good trade when it came into that channel here. Broke out of this wedge pattern. Now the thing about this, so there's several different patterns here, but you can see that this was the original one, and it popped there. So when the 15 crosses the 50 there, and then it also breaks out of this wedge pattern here like this, then there was some, and it started into a nice rising channel. You could have taken that trade in there around 15.75. Now this thing has wide spread, so it's very difficult to trade, extremely low float. But the way it went, it got up to close to high of day. This was the high was 17.25, and he's traded at 17.25 as well. So it gets up to high of day, and it gets whacked here, but it holds support on the 15-period moving average and goes back up. But then you see it's got this big long wick up again, closes near the bottom, and then it starts to get red. Now, when we had that same pattern here, it just sold off sold off 50 cents or so, maybe 75 cents, and then worked its way down. This one just dropped like a rock. So a couple of things could have happened to facilitate that. You get the market makers in here accumulating this stock. The market makers, or maybe a Chapman, but most likely the market makers. They start accumulating the stock, and they reserve, and because they're the house, they have access to shares to borrow. Probably was hard to borrow, but because it's only 4 million shares. But if it's their house, then they can find shares to short. So they accumulate the stock, gets up into this rising channel, gets to this double top. They tried to whack it down once, but it failed, and then it went again. Or maybe they faked it out, and everybody thought, aha, it didn't go down, so it looks like we're going to get a squeeze. And it started to go, but when it got to that 725 again for a second time, then they're shorting at these levels here. As it gets up close to 17.25, the market makers and traders that have confined stock are shorting this stock because they know of late, stocks that get up to the high of day, they tend to turn around and sell back off. So we get this double top. The market makers are shorting it. It fails to go, and so it gets panic selling probably by traders and such. But it holds the support on the 50. They come back in. So the people that were shorting it, they start to buy it, which is good for the market makers. You can see, the volume was low on this pullback, and a little bit higher on this, but not enough to break out. So everybody's watching that. They see that. If these market makers accumulated the stock in here and then are shorting it up here, now they have a position they can dump, and that's what they do. They just sell it at market, and that panics everybody. And because it's such low float and such wide spreads, it just drops like a rock. I mean, it dropped 2.25 in seconds, less than a minute. Yeah, less than a minute, it drops 2.25. Now I guess this minute here and then this one. So it doesn't matter. The point is, it sold off so sharply, and then they halted it. It got halted on a volatility halt, reopened. Now, it won't go back up because all this volume here now is overhead. It's all above this 1575 level. All those people that were trading this stock, they're just hoping they can get out somehow. And then it backs off. So my best guess is the market makers accumulated here. They started to run it up, gets up to the top. They short the stock. When they've got their position off short, then they just hammered with their long position, and it gets absolutely crushed, and away it goes down.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Reach new levels of trading proficiency. Become a member at turbotrading.biz.